Hello and welcome to another card making video. This is Julia and I'm so happy you're here. Today I want to share with you how I made this interactive rain shaker card or magical rain shaker card. And I used to do these a lot back in the day, like a few years ago, and then I just stopped and I'm not sure why. And as soon as I saw the Beary Rainy Day from Fawn from the last release, I knew I had to make a rain shaker card, but life just got in the way and I didn't get around to it until now. So all the more excited to finally make it today. And the mechanism is super easy to do. All you need is some double-sided foam tape or double-sided adhesive foam tape, seed beads, and some clear string. And I'll show you exactly how to do it. I stamped all the images from Beary Rainy Day and also the cute little bear from Here For You, or Here For You Bear, onto Transfer-Type Perfect coloring paper, and I'm using my Copic markers to color all the images in. I will leave the Copic markers I'm using on the screen up top as I use them so that it's easy to reference, but I will also list all of them in the description box down below. I wanted to use a simple color palette that would match the rainy background, so I just opted to use some cool purples, teal, and a light pink. I'm using BV02, BV01, BV00, and quadruple 0 for my purple. The teal shade was BG 18, 13, and 11, as well as the quadruple 0. Just adding 2 layers of color like I usually do so that I would get some nice shading. And I just alternated the colors between the outfits of the bears so that there's a little bit of movement, so that the bear with the teal coat has the pink shoes and the one with the purple coat has the teal shoes. And for my pink combination, I used RV 55, 52, and 10. Just like before, doing 2 coats of all the colors. And I'm just showing the coloring of one combination, but I colored all the other images exactly the same way. Then I'm using my favorite E50 markers to color in the bears. I'm using E57 as the darkest shade, blending that out with E55, and just for the smaller bears, since they're younger, I omitted the E57 and used E55 as the darkest shade. And again, I'm just adding the shadows depending on where the bear is facing. So the left one is looking to the right, so I added the shading to the left. The one in the middle is centered, so I added it all the way around, just like the big bear. And for the one that's jumping, it's more facing to the left, so I'm adding the shading to the right. Then I'm blending the E55 out with E53, adding a little bit of blush with RV52 so that the blush would match the coloring of the other pink images. Then blending that out with E51, trying not to forget the hands and the legs. I actually skipped the E53 on the last bear for whatever reason, so I just did that quickly. Also adding a little bit more of the blush, and then blending everything out with E50. And that already finishes the coloring. I die cut lots of Grassy borders. I used the simple Grassy border and the Grassy Hillside borders. And I'm just ink blending those with cracked pistachio and also with evergreen bough, just so that there's a little bit of movement there. And then I'm using the evergreen bough just with some water to add splatters. I'm just using an acrylic block to tap the brush on. That creates really tiny splatters. And then I'm just using my finger to tap on the brush to create a few larger splatters as well. I also die cut some cloud borders from vellum and from regular white cardstock. And I'm ink blending those with Salty Ocean. And I wanted the card to be really shimmery, so I'm using the Sukaneko Sheer Shimmer Spritz. And I'm just spraying the clouds as well as the little pond that I'm ink blending now. I used the salvaged patina and peacock feathers to ink blend the pond. And here I'm just using the sheer shimmer spritz to add some shine to that as well. For my background, I'm just using tumbled glass and Salty Ocean. I wanted the background to be still quite friendly and not really like a dreary kind of day, because I wanted to use the sentiment "have a happy day," and I didn't want the background to be too dreary. Again, using the Salty Ocean with some water to add splatters just with my finger, and then I'm also tapping off an acrylic block to create really tiny splatters. And then I'm also using the Liquid Stardust by Fawn to create lots of shimmery splatters as well. Then it was already time to create my frame. I used the scalloped slimline dies by Fawn. This is the largest size. And I just used another slimline die that doesn't have any stitching to cut out the center. You could also do that with a paper trimmer, but I found it easier with a die. And now I'm just trimming off the clouds and the grass pieces to fit behind the frame. I just made sure that none of the adhesive of the vellum would show, so that it's only adhered where the frame is, so that you can't see any of the glue. And I'm just using liquid glue to add that to the frame, because that will actually support and hide our mechanism for all the beads later. Then it was time to add all the grassy elements as well as the pond. Actually didn't put that into the glue, it was too low. Then I'm just adding the remaining grassy borders. Just layering them all with a little bit of liquid glue. Keeping the left side in view so that I would have an approximate height. And then I just trimmed them widthwise to fit behind the frame. And that already finishes our frame for the card. And now it's time to create our mechanism. I used the 12-inch ruler from Fawn because it has a 0 center, which makes this really easy. So I just started with a 0 and then went in every 1/4 inch, and I just drew a little pencil line. I did it up top and the same at the bottom. I used the frame that I just made to make sure that none of the mechanism and the pencil lines would show. And now I'm just using some foam tape strips. Those are, I think, 1/8-inch foam tape strips. And I'm just creating a frame for the mechanism. Making sure I adhere it so that I could still see my pencil marks. Snipping off any of the excess to make sure that the frame will be nicely supported. And I just added lots of foam tape to the bottom because there won't be any mechanism and that it wouldn't like press in once it's sent. And now I'm just using some nylon string, clear string, the thinnest kind I could find. You could also use fishing line, I think. And then just some seed beads that are clear iridescent. And I just removed the backing of the foam tape where I made the pencil marks. And then it's really easy. Sorry, my head keeps popping in there. I'm just adding a few of the beads. As you can see, I added lots of beads on the string. And then I'm just pulling a few to the front. And I'm just taking both ends of the string and I'm just pressing it into the exposed adhesive. Then I'm just snipping it off. Again, moving a few beads to the front, putting it between my fingers, front and back, and then I'm just pressing it into the adhesive where I made the pencil marks. I just keep doing that for all of the rows, pulling off more of the string as needed. I'm also varying the amount of beads that I'm using per string so that there's nice movement at the end. Just keep repeating that, pulling some beads to the front and then just pressing them into the adhesive all over the panel. I wasn't really careful to snip off the excess at the bottom because that will be hidden anyway, and the top we will trim off in a bit. Just making sure that they're nicely adhered. And I was actually running a little bit low on beads for the last one. I only had like 4 beads left and I wanted to have a few more on the last row. So I just quickly strung up a few more beads so that I would have, I think it was 7 or 8 on the final row. And then just like I did before, being careful not to put it too close to the adhesive. And then the most important part, seal in your strings. So I just added another layer of foam tape and I just really pressed down so that it would seal in all of the strings, because that is what keeps your mechanism working. And then I'm just trimming off the excess at the top, just so that all the strings are cut. Doing the same thing at the bottom, making sure that the adhesive is nicely sealing in the strings. And now I'm just adding a little bit of the anti-static powder tool to the edges so that none of the beads would stick to any exposed adhesive. Making sure the mechanism works nicely. And for this one you do want to use thick cardstock for the back, or adding a card base will do the same thing as well, because if the mechanism bends it shortens the strings, or no, it just the distance between the strings becomes shorter, so the mechanism won't work, so it needs to be straight, just as you have it down on your mat. And then I'm just adding a second layer of foam all over the remaining frame and the pieces that I added to the center of the bottom. And now I'm just layering the frame over top to create the card base. There, just making sure all my strings move nicely, or all my beads. And that's already it for the mechanism. Like I said, it's a little bit fumbly with the clear string because it's sometimes hard to see, especially on a white surface like I'm using, and the tiny little beads. But once you've done it once, it's super easy and you just need the string, beads and some foam tape. So I really do hope you give it a try. And then it was already time to set my little scene. I added the big bear first, and I made sure to adhere the bear at the top onto the clouds as well as the bottom, so that it wouldn't get in the way of the mechanism behind, so that it wouldn't be like sagging a little bit. I actually adhered the edge of the pond, so I'm just using some tweezers to make a little bit of room so that I could tuck in the little cattails. And I just alternated them so that there was a little bit of movement at both sides of the pond. I added lots of little puddles and the like splashes of water to fill up the scene. And then I'm adding all of the images just with liquid glue. I didn't want to add more foam because there's already 2 layers of foam on the card, so I didn't want to add more foam on the images. So that those would stand out even more and make the card even thicker. So I just added pretty much all of them just with liquid glue. I added the little umbrellas for the tiny bears from Elfie Selfie, which I just think is so cute. And the sentiment I heat embossed in white onto black cardstock. That is also from the Beary Rainy Day stamp set. And again, just like with the outfits, I alternated the colors of the umbrellas with the bears holding them. This one is getting the little pink umbrella to match the shoes. And then I'm just adding the sentiment with some liquid glue. Just playing around with what I have left of my colored images and seeing if I can add anything more in. Just added a few more splashes, making sure the mechanism still works, and just basically playing with the card because it's fun. And then I'm adding, because there wasn't enough shimmer on the card as usual, just my favorite Stardust stickles all over the water splashes so that they would have some nice shine and glimmer. And that finishes off my card for today. Here you can see the beautiful shine of the shimmer spreads and the glitter from the Stardust stickles. And there you can see the cute little seed beads moving and just creating this super fun waterfall effect. I could really sit and play with that all day. It's so fun. I had the best time making this and I really hope you enjoyed this video. I'll be back soon with a new card making video, and until then, have an amazing day. Bye!